Hi, Wijnand.
Good morning, Cristi.
Welcome to Romania, and really
you.
glad to have you here.
Yeah, so happy to be here at this conference of our organization, ARMO, that's a member of e-commerce Europe. And I'm proud to be here. Enjoyed your lovely country, your lovely weather, lovely people. Really enjoyed Brussels here. Yesterday I walked around, beautiful town. So glad to be here.
So far so good, right? The Romanian is living a very good, let's say, image.
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's perfect. And I'm really glad that this is the first impression of most of the people that are coming here, so hope that it will keep. Tell me a bit, tell us a bit about yourself and about e-commerce Europe.
Sure.
We've discussed earlier as well, and I did a bit of research. And not only that, you have a lot of very interesting insights and very interesting stories, but let's have a bit of, let's say, set the base and set the ground for the discussion.
Okay, well, Wijnand Jongen, I'm the currently president of e-commerce Europe. Maybe about myself, I've been in the business for over 25 years. So back in 2000, I started the association for e-commerce in the Netherlands and grew that association to probably the largest association in all of Europe. Before that, I was an entrepreneur. In 1996, I came out with a DVD, well, we called it a CD at that point in time, a CD with a virtual shopping center. So it's very much like the metaverse at this point in time. So we were way ahead of our time. Of course, it never worked. Business model didn't work. Nothing worked. But we did have the experience. So that was a lot of fun. And then when I started the association in 2000, I grew that to an association with over 2,000 members. We have 50 people working in the association, all representing the interest of the e-commerce players in the Netherlands.
Nice. Amazing to see someone working from for 35 years in the industry. Yeah. It's really amazing and an honor. I remember when I first started in e-commerce in 2007 in Romania, we were talking a bit earlier, no one was thinking that, let's say, you would buy shoes, you would buy cars, you would buy different things online in Romania. Of course, in other markets was happening, right? Yeah. That was something that it was already happening, and for sure trends would follow different markets. What were let's say, the milestones that we've been through in the last 10 years that you're seeing in e-commerce?
Well, I think maybe the most important milestone was, of course, the trust and the confidence of consumers. So somewhere down the road, I think consumers found the trust and the confidence to start buying online. And I think that was due to the fact that, of course, internet was all available for lots and lots of people. And I think internet and the services and the things that we could do on the internet got accustomed to consumers, and they thought, well, heck, this makes my life easier. And I'm a true believer that if something happens in your life that makes things easier or more enjoyable or more profitable, or even the perception of it being more profitable, for example, by saving time, then people are willing to change their behavior. And I think that's what happened exactly within the online atmosphere. People thought, heck, this internet stuff, it's easy, it makes my life fancy, and I'm part of the group. So why not start buying online? Why not only look, but also start buying online? And then once you realize that the products actually are coming in, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, that gives you a good feeling. So it gives you a kick. So let's continue to do that. That's I think one of the milestones.
Perfect. So let's say that's what we see as end result. Sure. But in the background, there are a lot of things. Let's say legislation, taxes, and all of those things. Let's deep dive a bit, because there are in the audience there are a lot of online stores, including that are selling abroad.
Sure.
And I see that as a huge challenge, but also as something that e-commerce Europe was always supporting, like to establish a framework, to work on the taxes, to work on the grounds on how commerce is happening.
Well, that's exactly why we started e-commerce Europe. We founded e-commerce Europe in 2012 exactly for that reason, because I mean, whether we like it or not, a lot of the legislation, the rules that we go about here in Romania, but also in all the European countries, they are being established, they are being created in Brussels. So we thought, as online community, we have to be there in Brussels, where they write the laws, where they think of the legislation, and we have to give input. They cannot make regulations or a legal framework without the input of the online players. So we founded e-commerce Europe, and now e-commerce Europe has grown to an association comprised of 23 national associations representing 22 countries in Europe. So we have a Brussels staff with the Secretary General and about 10 people working in the Brussels office. Of course, ARMO is one of the distinguished members of e-commerce Europe, so they're right at the front of where it's all is happening. And e-commerce Europe, therefore, we talk to the people of the Commission. We talk to the people who write the laws. And the neat thing is, after 10 years of existence in Brussels, the people of the European institutions, they come to us. They say, well, e-commerce Europe, what do you think of this rule? What do you think of this legislation? So we actually really have an impact on what's happening on that front in Brussels.
Perfect. I think this is very important for everyone to know, because I had a lot of discussions with most of the people from e-commerce, and everyone is seeing that there is a missing link between how, let's say, legislations and regulations and everything is being happening, and also what are the actual needs of the retailers, of the commerce industry. So everyone was seeing that as a missing link, but it was only because we don't see the actual work that is being happening, and we tend to focus on what's wrong, you know, but we don't see, let's say, the VAT regulation across Europe for cross-border. We don't see the things that really impacted the commerce industry. Yeah.
Well, and I fully understand that, because it's hard, the work that's being done in Brussels. I mean, it's just sometimes mind-blowing because it's difficult, it's hard to understand. Are they really thinking what we are thinking in terms of what do we want? Now, of course, that's why we're there. We try to impact that. But it's always, it's all those legal and words and sentences, and it's very, very difficult stuff. But it still is very important, because whether we like it or not, the rules are being made there. So we have to be on the front of making an impact on that. And I think you mentioned, I mean, three things. One is we are really now recreating a legal framework for all of Europe, with a big impact for the big tech players. And we are one of the people that really have stood strong in terms of making sure that the big tech is being regulated. That's e-commerce Europe is part of that. Two, there's of course lots of stuff to do about sustainability. We have to get into a more sustainable world. And of course the European Commission with the Green Deal and whatnot, they are really thinking hard of how to do that. And we have to make sure that they don't go too far, that they make things that we can actually do something with, because you can ask for the whole 9 yards, but ultimately the retailers here in this conference room, they have to implement it. So it has to be feasible, it has to be simple, it has to be effective, and it has to be efficient in terms of cost, because even a retailer only can spend their euro once. And of course, with the VAT is the same thing. VAT is a big issue, especially if you want to go cross-border. You have to make things easier and simpler for retailers.
Correct. So let's fast forward to 2023. I was reading the report in the report of e-commerce Europe, and looking on differences. Let's say, and I think this is very important for everyone to have a picture. In Romania, there are a bit more than 90% of the people have access to internet. Correct. This is something that kind of everyone knows. What we don't look at is the fact that 44% of the people are buying online. Let's say compared to Holland, where 98% of the people have access to internet and 95% of the people are buying online. How come? And how do you see the commerce industry, the commerce landscape in 2023? And also, let's have a look on the comparisons.
Well, it's an interesting question, and it's a good question as well, because how do you go about that? How do you increase the number of people that go for online shopping, etc., etc.? First of all, I think in the Netherlands, but also in other parts of Europe, this didn't come overnight. So it's not like all of a sudden everybody start buying. So it's a road that you have to go. It's a path that you have to cross. And I think it has to do, one, with, of course, with infrastructure. So I think, especially in the Western Europe part, the infrastructure for online services and online goods being sold and information being shared was very good. So everybody had a big bandwidth of connection. So we had 3, 4, 5G, very fast. And of course, that made the internet very fast, made it very adaptable for people to use. Then two, I think it was education. So we have to educate people. I think it's also a task for the people here. We have to work together with governments, with local governments, to educate people, not just the youngsters, because they pretty much know what's going on, what's feasible, what's possible, but also with the older people. They often are reluctant. They don't feel like well, can I do that? Is it safe? Whatever. Which brings me to the third point, I think, is trust. You have to build trust with people. Either by a trust mark, a national trust mark, or local trust mark, or you have to follow up on your promises. What you're doing, you have to, what you say you're doing, you also have to do. You have to make your promises come true. And if you combine all of that, and the shared experience, the word of mouth experience is good for many people, then I think gradually but steadily, I think the number of online users will grow, which I think, by the way, is happening. Because when I compare what's happening in the eastern part of the world versus the western part of the world, yes, I do still see a big difference in terms of turnover. I think I think 67% of all the e-commerce turnover in Europe comes from the western part, and only a small amount from the eastern part. But if you look at the e-GDP, so which part of the total GDP comes from e-commerce, in Western Europe it's about 5.9, but in Eastern Europe it's already 1.9. So the gap there is closing. And together, I think, with the increasing number of online shoppers, exponentially fast in compared, of course, to the western part where most people already are shoppers, I think Eastern Europe has a way to go.
So always there are two sides of the coin, right? And I was discussing that the star, let's say in Romania in 2022, was food, grocery, food delivery, and so on. And of course in other markets as well. But I was talking with a lot of people from the industry, and they were saying, I was asking, okay guys, look, the model validated, right? So you have now a lot of customers, you have now possibility to invest. Of course you have now a lot of competition because it comes in both ways. But why not investing prior to that? And everyone was saying, because it was the chicken or the egg story, you know? We didn't have customers to address that were buying groceries online, so then we didn't invest it. Because we didn't invest it, of course you don't have customers at the end of the day, because it is always a two-side story. And also what you're saying, it goes to education, it goes to setting the grounds, it goes to setting the landscape, the legislations and all of those things, but it also goes to fulfilling the promises. Because it's not about delivering the faster, it's not about having the cheaper price, it's not about having the best services, but it's about what I'm putting there in front of the customer, I need to respect. Yeah. Because when the customer decides, okay, I decide to buy from you and I choose you, then it's like, that's why we said that it's a contract, a long distance contract, right? Because it's a contract. I signed the contract with you, so it's very important to fulfill those promises and those needs. Let's go to some practical recommendations that you would give to people that either operate e-commerce stores, and retail, let's say commerce, and we would go to the commerce part as well. What would you give us practical, let's say, advices to move the needle from 44% of the people buying online to 90-something% of the people?
Well, I think maybe you should look at the most successful e-commerce companies in the world and see how they operate, how they do. The people that inspire, the companies that inspire us, the people that inspire us. Well, like we already talked about, first of all, of course, you need to make your promises come true. So if you promise that you deliver something overnight, you got to do it. Don't do it 3 days later. You got to do it overnight. So that's one, because then you build, that's the second part, then you build trust. If you have the trust of the people, then that will be wonderful for the retention. People will come back to you. So if a one-time customer is nice, but it's better to have a customer that comes back all the time. 3, I think it's important that you start personalizing the online experience. Nowadays, we do have the tools to make an online experience very personable. You can do that in all kinds of different ways, with educational type of programs, by trust programs, but also by a direct link between you and the customer. Send them targeted mails, follow-up mails. Create a calendar where you know that this customer hasn't responded for so many weeks or so many months, depending on the type of product and industry that you're in, and then remind them that, hey, we want to follow up on what you've done. Think about feedback loops and that kind of stuff. So there's lots and lots of ways that you as a company or working at a company can do to build retention, to help people to stay with you. And if you do all of that, then I think gradually but steadily, the number of online shoppers, the number and the amounts that online shoppers spend on each basket, I think it will grow. And if that will happen, word of mouth will spread the word, and I think e-commerce will grow and continue to grow for many years to come.
Nowadays, it's pretty, let's say, common to talk about unified commerce, to talk about commerce, and the fact that we don't have any more channels to address, or we don't look at the profitability of each channel, and we look at the commerce combined, let's say. But nowadays, that's why I insist on nowadays, it's common. And I see a lot of people clicking to this, let's say, speech, and this way of seeing seeing how the commerce is going. You wrote a book in 2018 that, at least the beginning of the title was, I think it's minimal to say bold, the end of online shopping. But you're looking on the fact that everything is always connected, that the commerce is always connected. And I'm very curious how you saw that, because in 2018, most probably you started wrote the book in 2017, right? Or something like that, or even earlier. And you're looking on how the word is being, or should act, let's say. How do you see now, moving forward to now that the industry is looking and it's more into this type of connected world?
Well, it's kind of funny because I started writing the book in 2014, and it was first published in 2016, and then all kinds of editions came, and you probably read the 2018 edition. And I really believed at that point in time that I think, you know, like in the future, we were not going to talk about online or offline anymore, but that everything is going to be integrated, because consumers, they can care less. They don't mind. They don't think, okay, today I'm going to do some online shopping, or today I'm going to do some physical shopping. No, they go shopping, and depending on their state of mind, how much time they have, what mind they are in, they decide, well, I go for a walk, and then I might go into a shop, or no, I don't have any time, I just do some online shopping. So that's why I called my book "The End of Online Shopping," which was, you know, like pretty bold. But I really believe that it was all about shopping, so about retail in an always connected world, and I think that's where we are. At least we're not there yet, but we're getting more and more in that direction. And I think the COVID times, the pandemic, really proved that those companies that had that the online players were the winners, of course. We did really well as online players. I think the platforms did really well, but also the physical shops that did have a online strategy, they did well as well. But those companies, physical companies that did not have an online strategy, they were among the losers because they had no clue what to do. They had no clue what to do. And I think that really brought like a sense in the world of commerce, in the world of shopping, that you got to bring it all in. So you have to make every way that the consumers think of shopping, you have to make that work for your customer. And of course, depending on the industry where you're in. But you mentioned food. Like 10 years ago, food, online, food, it's not going to work. Before that, shoes. Who's going to buy shoes online? Never, 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 never. And now you see that online supermarkets are finding their way, online food delivery is finding their way, because consumers are getting accustomed to it. They like it, they want it, and therefore it's all starting to integrate into one big shopping experience.
Correct. I was remembering a couple of stories that happened during the years, in the last 15 years, let's say. When we started to first do remarketing campaigns, so you would chase the customer in their interactions with other websites with exactly the products that the customer was looking, something that is not only common, something that is like base that all the commerce stores are doing nowadays. The owner of the company that I was working came to me and said, Cristi, are we wasting that much money because a competitor came and said that we are buying commercials in all the websites? And he was saying, no, that's impossible. You can't spend that much amount of money. So people were, let's say, very reluctant at the beginning. And also we received phone calls from customers saying that I don't want to be chased. I don't want you to enter. It's my privacy, it's my private world. Coming nowadays that I think in 2018 I started a startup to bring some online indicators and online KPIs in the offline worlds, and also to personalize the experience in the offline worlds, to identify you, to give you, to check what you have in the shopping basket and so on. And nowadays people expect to receive the same level of personalization in all the commerce, because as you're speaking, it's a connected commerce and it's a commerce at the end of the day. The customer is shopping in different channels. How do we stay protected, and how do we ensure that the customer data and the customer privacy at the end of the day is protected? And also, what's happening in Europe on this level, on customer privacy, customer protection, data protection, and all of those things? How do you see that topic?
Well, a lot of stuff is happening, because I think over the summer, two important a new legal framework was established, which is called the Digital Service Act on the one hand, and then the Digital Market Act on the other hand. And it really is all about the safety of online users. It's protecting their rights, giving them opportunities, for example, within the Digital Service Act, to make big platforms aware of the fact that they have illegal posts of illegal goods, of illegal content, and then of course the big players have to do something about it. So they have to prevent from illegal goods and services and content to be posted, and therefore consumers have more and more rights. And within the Digital Market Act, also, which went into place July 5th of this year, which really regulates the big tech. And we were very much, e-commerce Europe was very much on the brink of, we have to regulate the big tech. Not just the European players, but especially those players that are not from Europe, like the Americans and the Chinese. Because we were seeing that our companies, our retailers were being hurt by the fact that it was cheaper to bring a package from China over, let's say, to Romania than to send a package from Brasov to Bucharest. We thought, well, that's not correct. That's not the way it should work. So we helped establish this Digital Service Act and the Digital Market Act. And the Digital Market Act really provides for a legal framework to do that. So it guarantees user safety. It also helps that that the companies, the big tech companies, are being somewhat like gatekeepers. So they have to keep track of the fact that those products that are being sold within their platforms meet the highest EU standards. And we all know that's sometimes a problem for, let's say, the Asian type of products that come our way, to say it mildly. So thereby giving consumers ultimately also the right to say, well, this is not working, that's not working, this is an illegal good, that's an illegal service, this product doesn't work according to the strictest EU rules. And it also includes data protection, it also includes privacy regulations, which is, by the way, a different piece of game. But ultimately, we as retailers, I think, very much benefit by these two new big legal framework acts that have been implemented in July of this year. And I think all of those acts and the legislation that's in there will now trickle down into national legislation. So left or right, we all are going to see, what's happening there, and it will be implemented in your national legislation as well.
I would come back to the sustainability and the fact that we all are working, because it's very connected to the privacy thing, and it's about being aware and about being mindful that there is also, we need not only to make a difference and have an impact, but we need to make this in a sustainable way. We need to make changes. We need to, personalize the experience of the customer, because I see being mindful of the privacy the same as being mindful of the sustainability of your business, because it's the privacy of the customer, and the customer will stay with you. If you mind the sustainability of the business, that means that you would keep on having a business or a market or something like that. What are the things that, or the changes, or what you see now happening in Europe from this perspective of sustainability?
Well, sustainability, of course, is maybe one of the hottest topics at this point in time. Of course, the European Commission put out the Green Deal and all kinds of packaging and packaging waste reforms. And clearly, what Europe wants is that we are, as an industry, will become more careful about our waste, about packaging, about over-packaging, about packaging waste being dumped wherever it's dumped. So we got to do something about it. But maybe more important is that we also should realize that a lot of consumers want the same thing, more and more, because the number of consumers that are sustainable conscious is growing, and it's growing fast. Sure, it's not always that way, because if consumers have to think, well, I can buy something with plastic or big packaging or without, and one is cheaper and the other one is more expensive, still a lot of consumers go for the money, go for the cheaper part. But we as an industry, we have to take our responsibility. We have to slowly but steadily. That's why we also asked the European Commission, sure, yes, we need to do this, and yes, we want to do this, but also step by step, because we cannot ask our companies to overinvest the money that we don't have. We have to grow together, so we have to take it step by step, and I think the European Commission is very much aware of that, so we make them realize that we cannot do this overnight. But ultimately, it's our responsibility. We need to do it because we want to do this not just for ourselves, but also for our children, and everybody who has younger children know that this is something that they want. So if you win their trust and win their confidence, also on the sustainable side, not just by putting a green label on there or like greenwashing, but really do the stuff that you promise, I think, we can make this place a little bit of a better world, but step by step.
And I always do a parallel, because people let's say, tend to neglect this topic. And somehow is understandable because they have a million other things, let's say priorities. But I connect this to the fact that if you don't look at the customer lifetime value of your customers, and let's say you acquire a customer right now and the customer goes away, the market is limited. It's the same with sustainability. If you don't mind the fact that you would need a market afterwards, you will need to sell to someone, you would need to leave something for, I don't know, the generations to come, and you pack all the goods just for the product not to be broken because the carriers are crazy, because, I don't know, you have a million excuses why to do that, and not starting to fix it, I think at the end of the day, we won't have a connected commerce, or we won't have a world that we want to have, actually. And it's always very important to meet those three, let's say, parts of the framework that you're mentioning. Having a framework, having the legislation, and also having the actors that are part of the game being involved and leaving the mark. And I encourage everyone to be part of an association, to write to e-commerce Europe, to ask for advices, and mainly because we're talking, and we'll talk during those days also about going abroad and selling to other market and educating our market to sell more in and to have more customers buying. I encourage everyone to ask questions. I think this is very important. As you're mentioning, we don't need to reinvent the wheel and to, I don't know, look at, I don't know, some crazy projects on how to sell more, how to convince our customers to buy more. We'll need to look at someone that is doing that, as someone that is already an authority in the market. As closing, let's say, what would you have as key takeaways for the Romanian e-commerce industry?
Well, I think the key maybe takeaway is that trust in yourself. I mean, you are a company, you have your customers, you should rely on your customers. Listen to your customers, know what they want, fulfill their promises, and try to think of a little bit of a strategy, you know, for the next few years. How do you want to be different from your competitors? And maybe the word sustainable will be in there. Maybe the word privacy will be in there. Maybe the word safety will be in there. But that's where you can distinguish from your competitors. And I think if you do all well, if everybody does the same well, then I think for Romanian e-commerce, I think there's a great promise ahead of you. And again, we as e-commerce Europe are glad and happy to support that from a more legal perspective and make this work for the industry.
Thank you so much, Wijnand. It was a real pleasure to have you here.
Most welcome.
Dacă avem întrebări, 2, 3. Dacă putem lua și 2-3 întrebări din sală, dacă există, dacă nu, le puteți păstra pentru zona de networking.
And I encourage the audience to ask questions because it's not often that you can have someone with that experience to answer. And I don't know if my questions kind of touched all the topics that are of interest, for sure not. So if there are any questions.
Okay. We will go on. Thank you very much.